Hey guys, what's up? It's coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides with Schla. And today I woke up kind of normally, but I didn't really want to get out of bed, but we did get out of bed, so that's really what matters, right? That's really what matters. Um, what is there to? I don't know if I'm gonna start acting like that. I was just thinking of something to talk about. I was just thinking of it. I did end up going through a pretty big hassle to get the transcription thing, but that transcription app only works on iOS 18 or later, so I had to transfer it over to the other phone, and it took a while, and I honestly don't know that it was worth the effort because basically GPT just kind of blew it off and said that even within deterministic philosophy, it does not change. It basically, even if free will doesn't exist, then it doesn't change. Which I don't know. I mean, I think it was really like a pretty correct thing or whatever. I mean, well, I'm actually not going to I won't even say correct because it may not be correct, really. No, I don't know if it's correct or not, but it's something. It's something. I don't know why I was talking like that. Yeah, these morning episodes, they've been rough. I just think it's because I wake up and you guys are basically just when I wake up, but not that that's even necessarily a handicap for me because I actually a lot of times I consider myself a morning person. I do like the morning the most out of any time in the day, which is typically unusual. A lot of people hate the morning, but I actually like the morning. I think the morning is actually the nicest time. It's the cleanest, Once you get through the day, it becomes dirty. The memories and things that come into your mind, a day becomes filthy. And so that's why I personally like what I'm talking about, which is I like the morning. Even though a lot of people don't like mornings, I also like Sunday for that same reason because there's always some kind of a refreshing feeling on a Sunday. I can't put my finger on it, but it's always been that way as far as I can remember. There's every Sunday morning there's just a very refreshing feeling. It's just always been the case. Also like Saturday though. I think everybody can get down with in Saturday, but I don't know, Sunday has always had such a it does feel like things kind of get reset, at least energetically. I don't know. I don't know if it's just a bunch of mental placebo gibberish, but I've always felt that way. I've always felt like Sunday is just such a clean, clear, refreshing day. And I don't know, if it's because I was raised in a way where we always went to church on Sunday morning as a child, so it kind of maybe that stuck with me because even though then for most of my life we started going to church on Saturday evening as opposed to Sunday morning, I still think the child programming is really what matters, and just being in a maybe a consistent setting like that, that ends up affecting a person. So Well, this guy could have went and he hesitated, but he really could have went. Anyways. So I think there's that aspect to it as well. Like, there was always some kind of positive association because, yeah, because I always loved that. I always loved that feeling on Sunday of finally a clean slate. I feel like with how much I'm obsessed with tracking and chronicling and basically, trying to architect a sense of accountability, it's very relaxing to finally have some kind of freedom from that, That's basically what happens. To finally have some type of freedom. Not have to go through that. It's good. But yeah, these episodes have been a bust. I think that's why. I think it's just because. But what I was saying is there has been times I've woken up. Well, first of all, there's been morning episodes that have been very good. I just don't think it's been relatively recently, although I do think there have been some good morning episodes. But what I mean to say is, even if I just wake up, like, usually my brain is ready. Like, I don't really. So I'm not sure if that's what the problem is, or if it's just more of a problem that I'm just, like, in a rush, like, in general. I'm in some kind of a rush about things, and, that kind of causes it, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Because if you're in a rush, it's just you're not in a place that is conducive to a lot of good thought and conversation, right? And that's obviously pretty important for obvious reasons. It's just like, is what it is. But it's definitely an important thing to think about. It's an important thing to consider. As for what time I got in the car, I think I got in the car relatively early. I don't think it was anything out of the ordinary in terms of when I got in the car, but I don't know how that's going to translate, because I could still end up just being a relatively normal time. It may not be anything special. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I guess I'm not very angry this morning. I've been trying to think more about relaxing and peace and stuff like that. So I guess there's not really like a pressing topic. There's not anything that's, I'm like, like, I want to talk about this. I want to, But now it's like, I don't know. I guess I could try to talk about myself. That's kind of what the recent idea has been, is to just chat about myself when I don't have some kind of deep answer to something. I don't know. I think it's more the feeling of rushed than it is a feeling of... I think that's what causes a lackluster episode is when... So that actually could explain some things, though, because if we assume that most of the time I don't feel rushed, as my ability to have that more zoomed out thinking, we've talked about it a lot. If I have the ability to not be rushed most of the time, even though I am sensitive to some relatively minor rushing, that doesn't always happen with me. So what I'm saying is, in my day-to-day life, I'm really not that rushed because I have relatively above average time management skills. Or at least, I don't even know about time management. Maybe I don't have good time. Well, I probably do have good time management just because I'm time aware. We've talked about that. But again, I'm just not in a rush very often. There's just not really I'm just not in a rush very often. It's rare. And so what I'm saying is based on what I said in the other episode about how I feel like time, it probably moves slower for me. Things, if my brain is able to go through more thoughts per second than another person, it's like my experience of time is going to be vastly different. I'm going to experience things in a different way from a different perspective than another person, So, certainly something to keep in mind when we're dealing with this stuff, when we're talking about this stuff, because that is kind of the whole thing that we're dealing with. The whole thing we're dealing with is we're talking about the ease to get into these kinds of conversations. That's what we're talking about. And what I'm saying is, what I'm noticing on these mornings, if I'm in this rushed state, I'm not really able to do it easily. And the truth is, most people could feel in a rushed state most of the time, right? Because they're not, they're really not thinking about these larger problems of poverty or, cultural things or things like that. They're not really going to be thinking about those kind of things. And if they did, they would probably be completely swamped. Because for most people, it's just about, getting to work. If they can just hold that down, and then that's it. And then they don't really have energy to be thinking about anything larger than that, larger than whatever's physically in front of them. That person was just I'm really tired of people doing that. They just don't slow down and they're in the right lane. Don't drive in the right lane then. That's crazy. But anyways, yeah, it's a real thing. But people are stressed, and I'm assuming if that's kind of their baseline, then yeah, I don't know how, because I wouldn't really be able to come up with much. If I had a lifestyle that was pretty stressful like that, this show would have never happened. The only reason why I'm able to talk about these, it's a combination of both environment and personality, but because obviously somebody could be in my environment and then do nothing with it. That's completely possible. If your memory is not as good, or if you're just not as good at articulation, those are strong suits that I guess we could point to being genetic, because I mean, my environment was relatively conducive for it. You know, my parents read to me as a baby, things like that, but nothing was really done to me that was particularly extra or special, if that makes any sense. Like, it wasn't like my parents were doing these extra genius procedures, or I didn't like get to travel a lot. I just didn't get to do any of that. Like, I lived like a very standard middle class, lower class kind of experience. You know, that's really what it was like. It was that was the experience, with practical parents who, you know, the only reason why I could say like middle class is just because they didn't buy much unnecessary things. So like, we could have had less money than a lot of people, but they just didn't, like, we didn't get takeout that much. We didn't get food out that much. You know, that saves a ton of money. Didn't really have any subscriptions, like no cable TV, no this, no that. You see what I mean? So it was more about like practical parents than me actually being like stably in the middle class. Like, I don't think I was. I don't think I was like stably in the middle class in terms of income. I think we were there because of situation. You know, because if my dad has his mortgage paid off, for example, that tends to offset a lot of common expenses that you would run into. You know, it's just how it goes. So I think the fact that was the case had given us a bit of an advantage with things, but it's like, I don't know. It's still not, I don't even know if we were like fully middle class, because my experience was not really a middle class America experience. Like, we never had a nicer car than just like a regular car. You know, we always owned regular car brands, and like I said, we never really went on, didn't really go on vacations that often, didn't really do anything, you know. Maybe more so when I was younger, we might have traveled to just go to places like maybe museums and stuff, like occasionally, but by the time I was like a teenager, that was really the end of that. And then, you know, we just haven't really done much anymore. But yeah, I would just say, yeah, like my experience in life, it was, I guess it was higher than a lot of other people at my parents' income, because most people at my parents' income would have like wasted more money on things, like on themselves, and my parents didn't do that. So it's just I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, I don't even know that I ever felt like firmly middle class. I think again, like I said, the main pusher for that was just the paid off home. The not having to pay a mortgage was like the heavy weight to that. There's not really, without that, we would be in much worse condition. So that's like a big lever to that. But that was like my experience growing up. And it's a good experience for, I guess, the type of thoughts and philosophies I end up having. It's basically a near perfect. It's a near perfect experience for that kind of stuff. Very conducive to that. Now, the problem is when it comes to, pushing yourself or applying yourself, yeah, like in that regard, I'm definitely lacking in some ways. pretty difficult for me to actually push myself and put myself out there. It's no easy feat. I get stuck in my head a lot, and even if I know I'm right about things, that doesn't really get you much in life, honestly. Like, even if you can have the correct idea or the right beliefs about a certain thing, like, that doesn't even always matter. Doesn't even really always amount to everything, but sometimes it doesn't amount to anything. That's kind of the crazy thing about life. A lot of times if you're correct too often and then you have a boss that doesn't really like that, he might just want to get rid of you because it's like a little bit uncomfortable, depending on the personality, of course. But yeah, there's a lot of advanced kind of nuanced thinking with humans where there can always be some kind of like manipulation or underlying motive or things like that, and it just gets so complicated and sinister too. Sinister is a good. Whereas again, kind of what I was talking about yesterday is like, I don't know, there has to be some kind of collective care, and it's really not happening. It's kind of what I was talking about yesterday. It's very interesting how that idea of treat others the way you want to be treated, it took an incredibly long time for us to even tangibly see where that could be applied. Like a civilization where that could actually be applied. We didn't see that for a very long time. It took a lot of development after the fact to get to where we're at now. It's just a bunch of tricky situations. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to drum something up. I'm trying to get into something to talk about. So, trying to figure it out, trying to get somewhere, Trying to solve something, right? If every day we could solve one little conundrum or strange thing, that would obviously be a good thing, but I really just need more time to relax and recharge. That's really the main problem, I would say. It's the main issue that I face. For sure. So, I don't know. But then I don't know what to say, really. Like, what do I say? I don't really know. Like, a lot of times it's just, I'm coming up with what I'm coming up with, So, that's just how it goes. But I'm glad I got to talk about something. At least I'm not just sitting here in silence or near silence, No, there probably was something I was going to talk about, but I didn't even end up talking about. I think it had to do... I know yesterday we were talking about salvation and how, like, does God take into account the time period you're in? Because that would, in any reasonable estimation, affect things a lot. I think a lot of people assume people are way more intelligent than they are, because it's only really intelligent people that even start to, like, think and try to gauge people's intelligence in any meaningful way. Like, you have to remember, most people, they don't do that. Like, if they're trying to engage with quantifying a person's intelligence, they're going to engage with quantifying a person's intelligence, a person is going to just kind of probably say they're stupid or something, and, like, not really analyze it that much. So I think, like, the people who are rational, they just over rationalize it, and that, I don't know, it ends up being, like, a big deal when it isn't necessarily. Like, there's not stuff there to... People are adding meaning to people. Like, everybody does this, I think, because it's something I'm aware that I do. So I obviously have my way of talking and my way of thinking, and that just ends up getting applied to whoever I interact with. And then I think that like, I basically attribute a greater than personality of people onto them in my own fantasy, because from my vantage point, I just see and interpret things in a different way. It's in a different way how I see and interpret things. Sorry. Bunch of thoughts came through. I need to figure something out, though, because these mornings, they haven't been working. I think this whole week. Well, on Monday it's only been the second one of the week, but yesterday's was terrible as well. So I don't really know what it is, and I don't really know how, like, last night I was, like, cooking, and I was really doing well. Like, yesterday's episode I thought was great, and then you get to today, just the following morning, and it's just no good. Like, that doesn't really make any sense to me. I don't know, like, it just shouldn't be like that or something. Just expecting more, expecting better. I don't know. So, but what can be done? I can only be who I am, right? It's like, really, I don't know. You can't really push a lot of this stuff. Oh, actually, I guess I can talk about this. My intuition is loosely correct. You know, philosophy or like language, they're some of the more like further needed for development traits. But GPT did push back saying like things aren't really that linear, like the way things are, and there still is a lot of philosophers where their best work was when they were young, and plenty of musicians where their best work was when they were old. But I kind of want to push back on that because that doesn't sound right to me. And I don't know if that's seeing it through the modern lens of, modern musicians, the majority of them crash and burn after their quote-unquote prime. But I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think it could be an example of 5.1 being like a little too rosy, because it still doesn't really sit right with me or make sense that it's saying there's like I don't know, no meaningful difference. That just seems kind of off to me that would be the case. Like I think there probably would be a meaningful difference. I don't know. No, that's just kind of me, but I'm just saying. So, yeah, I don't know. It still seems kind of like a weird response. Like, I guess I understand its premise. Its premise is that, you really, there's no reason to correlate. I don't think it really answered my question. Like, it didn't really do any, like, data deep dive or anything like that. So it didn't. That's why I feel like I'm not happy with its response, because it didn't really clarify anything. Like, I don't feel like it telling me that told me with like, oh, well, here's the data to back up what you're talking about. You're right. Or no, you're wrong, and here is the data to show it. It just goes like, yeah, well, plenty of artists and musicians, And so I don't know if that's just pulling that out of thin air, or if that's actually based on something. Like it's almost getting a little bit too human, where it should be checking everything. I mean, especially if it's on the thinking model, it's like you really can't. I don't know. I just think that was like a little bit too human of a moment for it. That's like the kind of thing like a human would tell me, and why I liked GPT more. Because at least GPT, I had a sense that it was very good at, determining the correct answers and all kinds of stuff like that. Dude, this light, let's move. Oh, it's not going to change. I would have gotten a very good light thing, but it's like just, no, it's still not changing. Oh my gosh. Just crazy. Kind of stuff always goes down like this, like. Had good light luck for a little bit, but I guess if this light's good, we'll end up making a reasonable time, but we'd have to hit this light, and then we'll make a good time. But we won't, because it just turned yellow, so. Great. I mean, our time will still be, like, slightly above average by, like, maybe a minute, but, I don't really think it's anything. It's nothing exceptional, like, I don't. Can it change? Yeah, alright. Never mind, maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay. Yeah, we'll actually probably make a fairly decent time. Never mind. That's good. It's very good. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm going quiet because my brain and my body is just focusing on the impending stuff. I don't know. You know, about like getting to work and thinking about that. So it is not thinking a whole lot about the talking about some kind of like abstract out there concepts, you know. Yeah, I think we're probably going to make the same time as yesterday, which is good. I mean, it's not a bad thing, so. Oh my gosh, what? I just literally got like fouled up because this truck's being weird in here. Can't believe that timing. It could have messed up my chances. It could have completely foiled my plan. That's gonna be kind of sad. I think it's gonna be relatively close. Alright, that was a lot of lag. This is a lot of lag. Alright, no, we're good. It's with 12 seconds to spare. With 12 seconds to spare. Wow. Well, same time as yesterday. Pretty good. Can't complain. So, it's good. Very good. I don't even think I did what I'm supposed to do. When I come in usually. can't remember. Yeah, it's been a shame there hasn't been a good morning episode in a while. It is pretty a shame. I don't really know why. Like I said, I kind of had some potential theories about why, but I honestly don't know why these morning episodes have just been relatively boring. Alright, time to get situated. Alright. And I think it's been schla, now it's time to buy schla. So, see you schla.